Hey everybody, welcome to Friday. I hope you've had a great low friction week. And alright, just going to be going through a few topics fairly quickly today. I was struck down by the dreaded man flu this week. Sort of went through the whole family. Pretty much, well, mostly back to normal now, but it does dent the week somewhat. So it's left me a little bit short coming in today. But let's get to a whole bunch of fun things happening. Two immersive waxes out at the moment, one being Hyper, which is their, fastest possible wax, and Wonder is their longer lasting, supposedly silky smooth. It's quite an interesting looking wax, so you can see it looks definitely quite different to the typically black immersive waxes that we see. One notable difference to that recently was is Finish Line's kind of sandy, dirty color look. This one does look like melted butter. Interesting vote to get up. So luckily I already had some of this on hand. An interested party had already sent me some Wonder Wax to have on standby a little bit ago. So after tallied the votes, I was able to get the machine all reset, and this test is already up and running. And quick general test update. Test Machine 1 has just finished the Silca Endurance chip single application longevity testing, which we'll be reviewing shortly. And have moved on to, we've sort of commenced the Silca Speed chip single application longevity testing. Test Machine 2's just finished the optimized bike wax test, and that one's now booked out for a reasonable amount of time with some private testing. Test Machine 3, we've got a private biolubricant test on that one at the moment. Coming up after that test, not 100% sure. There's a few tests that are sort of tentatively booked in, and it's going to be a little bit of a race between which one has their samples ready first. One of the companies involved actually has supposedly an extremely long-lasting chain, which will be a really interesting test if we get to crack on with that one. So they built their own test machine, exactly the same pretty much as what we have here. And they've been benchmarking their chain versus the current wear longevity leader, which is SRAM's XX1 hard chrome or XO1 hard chrome chains. And they believe they've got something substantially longer lasting, which would be really exciting to test. So, might be some fun stuff coming up. I can't mention whom that is, and it's not 100% that we'll get that test through, but we've certainly had a number of chats so far, and so fingers crossed that'd be one I'd really like to get going on just for fun. All right, work continues apace for the new e-inflator testing. So I'm still, apart from piling through the actual testing, which is a lot easier than doing the lubricant and chain testing. But so I've been still smashing through a fair bit of that, trying to clock up the work cycles so that we can get to the durability testing side of these units. And been doing still a fair bit of tinkering on the main data sheet, so I can have a quick duck to that. Alrighty, so this will be a work in progress still for some time, and there may be some columns that I sort of add in or remove as we go, just depending on how useful they are or are not. Based on feedback from the launch, I have included the volume of the units as well, so size may be an important factor as well as just weight. I don't factor in the nozzles, so just the actual, the cube of the units. So some nozzle sizes may or may not be of a factor to you, but in reality, I think in most cases, the differences between nozzle sizes shouldn't make too much difference unless you're really, really, running the gauntlet on what you're fitting in your saddle pack. Good feedback to add PSI gauge accuracy. I couldn't get the Silca Truth gauge, unfortunately, as that has been discontinued, or like the factory that made them went out of business, sadly. Based on Project Farm's testing, I have the Jayco pressure gauge just arrived, so I'll get cracking on that. So that is a very accurate gauge, which we'll be able to pit the units gauges against. We've popped in noise and vibration just for fun. This max PSI the unit will start. I'll talk about that more in just a sec, but that's a really interesting one. So we've added that in, and we are going to be performance scoring that, because in real world use, that's going to be, I think, something quite important to take into account. And then we've got all the remaining columns in there, and I've just sort of now highlighted in blue which columns actually make up the performance score. And then I've just started to work on use notes based on what they've been like to use through testing, and that I will basically mostly refer to once I've actually killed a unit and doing a mini review on it. This should be uploaded very soon to a new sort of web section, and I will get some sort of intro notes to it. Down the bottom of this, I do have a bunch of notes explaining all the main columns so that there'll be reference to those if you get stuck and sort of what we're on about. All right. All right, the max PSI or max pressure that a unit will actually start working, I think that has a lot of big real-world implications. Sorry, trying to make words difficult for myself today. I know probably the main one that stands out to me, because all of my off-road bikes are tubeless, and if you run tubeless, you know that keeping on top of how clear your valves are, so the valve core and the valve itself, it's something that you really need to be on top of, or you can find yourself having a little bit of fun should you need to do a repair, especially if you want to do that repair in a hurry. So, for instance, with these mini inflators, it can be fairly common that if you've let your valve cores start to clog from sealant, or the valve itself, just call that the same, you go to inflate it, the tyre might be at fairly low pressure, but as soon as you start to inflate it, the inflator just shuts off due to its pressure cut off almost immediately because of the restriction of trying to pump through a clogged up valve. Things just aren't happening. It just really can't get it in there, and it shuts off. Now, there are times where if that restriction is not so bad that it's immediately shutting off, but it's bad enough, it's certainly causing it to have to fight, and it's getting quite high pressure on the unit, and it will shut off after X time. Depending on the situation, you may not have time to faff, to remove your valve, try to clear it and unclog it and unclog the valve core, pop that back in and go again. You might be getting there okay, especially if you're fixing a puncture, say during a race. So you've got your e-inflator attached and it's getting there and it stops due to a pressure shut off, and you just need to get it going again. So, and if this is on road where the pressures are higher, the unit being able to start at X pressure, it's going to be quite handy if it can just do so. I haven't checked many of the units' instruction manuals yet online for this detail. I've already seen some where they do say, please don't start the units at pressure. Please either start with a flat tire or, sorry, I think a branch just fell on my roof. Start them and then attach to the tire if they are at pressure. But yeah, I think there's a number of times that is not going to be as optimal for use versus just being able to press go and the unit is okay to go. All right, and yeah, so I've hopefully got some video which we'll try to pop up to show just how big the differences can be from one unit to another on this. And I know for me that this is a really important performance metric, and so it may be for you as well. So yeah, we've added that one in, which is, yeah, I think going to be a fun one.
The Flex Tail, $69, so a cheaper unit. Similar to this, potentially not genuine Cyclist. It has a bit of a soft start, and I think the soft starts really don't do well starting at pressure. So that's how it sounds from zero. Ooh. Wow. Okay, that just got going at 20. Let's try 25. Not happy. Just got going. Okay, 30. Yep. 35. Still doing it, but it's not happy. 40. Yeah. 50. Yeah, still got there. Oh, sorry, I should say 45, that was. Alright, now we're at 50. Yep. So it's struggling about the same at 50 as it was at 20. It's just a very odd start. Let's try it from 60. Potentially it being warmed up a bit is helping it. Taking a while to get to 60. Nope. Nope. Ooh, nope. So 60's about it. Or not it, I should say. Oh, it's trying. It's really trying. I'm not entirely sure what's going on in there. It's moving, but yeah, so 60 no, maybe 55. That ramped up the heat rather massively, trying to do that as well. No. So 50 was the last successful start. Alright, the Silca Plus AS2 from AliExpress, which I am not 100% sure if this is genuine or not. Let's see, I'm starting this one at 0. It has a strange soft start, which the Silca Plus AS2 Max does not have. So 0 was fine. PSI. Struggle. Doesn't want to start. Doesn't want to start. This does make me wonder if this is genuine. Nope. Let's drop it down to 10. So that's very limiting, because if you have even started to inflate your tire, needed to stop for some reason, and then want to restart, having to drain it and then start again will not make your e-inflator feng shui happy. That is not willing to start even at 10 psi. So it pumps up to a decent pressure once it's going, but that is not able to even start. Let's try it basically 5. I think I'm going to have to buy one of these from a genuine site in Australia and see. Okay, got going at 5. Let's let it pump itself up to about 10 and check. Alright, we'll stop there. Got going that time. Let's stop at 15. And no. I can feel it trying to start. Just got going when it dropped down a bit. So about 15 psi, it's about 50-50 as to whether or not it's going to get going. Very interesting. That is not optimal. Okay. Right, the Thumper Nano. Starting this at basically, let's start at 85, see how we go. No, that's right. I got to press and hold this all the way. No problem. Impressive for a unit this size. Okay, 90. No problem. All right, from 100. Yeah, no problem at all. Not sure what the max pressure is on this very small unit. Okay, going to start from 110. Yeah, no problem. I'll see where it gets to, but that's impressive. 110 psi start, no trouble at all. Problem. It is getting warm. It gets to 120. The only trouble with this unit in real life is that trying to actually pump a tire to 120 with this, it doesn't come with a hose, so I've MacGyvered that one on. You have to hold it there, and that becomes practically impossible due to temperature. Okay, see if it starts from 120. Yeah, this is the start master. I'll let it recover. I'm going to give it a max PSI run later. But start from 120, perfect.
Just in terms of requests for what units to add to the test list for me to sort of look to purchase in the future and put them through the paces. At this stage, keep them to the smallest category, so really the sub 150 gram category or micro, nano, tiny. Number of reasons. For one, these are by far, I think this category is by far the most popular at the moment. They are the most likely for people to actually carry and use as opposed to the mid and large size units. So for instance, I had some requests for the Fantic X9. It's like a 400 odd gram unit. Very few people are going to actually be carrying that there. They might be purchasing to use as their inflator at home. But that's less the focus at the moment than trying to build up a nice big data performance table on the units that people are most likely going to be relying on to fix the situation out in the real world. So the other reason to focus on these is that, say, the larger units, especially in the more premium brand names, are more expensive. And funding for this project is going to have to be staggered a bit over time. This is funded really by the ZFC retail side, and profits on chains and wax, it's a bit of a slog. We make about 30 to 40% gross profit on selling chain lubricants and pre-wax chains, which after costs of doing business, the last few years we've been averaging around sort of 10-11% net margin. What that means is that if I spend $100 to purchase something, I need $1,000 worth of sales of chains and wax to break even on that spend. So spent around about $1,500 on stuff to get this project kicked off, which means it's about $15,000 worth of sales of chains and wax just to break even on that. So over time, hopefully this will be something that generates interest, which generates a bit more traffic. It's helpful potentially once we've built it up enough to be of assistance to, say, cycling media publications that are doing reviews on these little gadgets. But we're a little bit away from that yet. It's going to take a bit of work and time and cost to get this to a really good spot. And so, focusing on the smallest category is really where we need to be at this time. And then hopefully down the track, we'll expand into the larger units. And very last note on all this, I just wanted to say a very quick thank you to those that have sent in some contributions recently. Any support helps enormously. I had a especially generous one from a follower, Alex, so thank you for that. That has really helped get the mini inflator testing up and running. Obviously, bicycle chain lubricant testing and chain testing and selling chains and lubricants based off the knowledge that we get from that. That is, it's not an easy area in cycling to make viable profit from. It's been great that we've been able to continue along and see what value we can add over the last sort of coming up to 10 years. So we're trying to plow along. Stepping into testing the mini e-inflators, that is not likely to be a break-even front. I don't think anyone's thinking, hey, a good way to make some money will be to start testing little electric bike pumps. But I think there's potentially some interest and knowledge of value to gain there, and it's good to have a crack. But obviously, any and all support, even if that is literally just liking and subscribing to the channel, sharing videos you find of interest to your cycling friends, positively engaging in the comments, all of that sort of stuff will help. So thank you for those doing what you can to help ZFC tick along, and I will keep doing what I can to see what value I can add into the areas that we're focusing on. All right, my apologies. Sorry, got a bit carried away again with some of the info around the inflator testing. Better get to the actual, what's meant to be the main topic of today. Let's have a look at the Silca Endurance chip and the single application longevity testing. All right, before we get to the actual data though, I do need to quickly run through a fairly big change in how I'm displaying the single application longevity test ratings. So I've moved to basically a longevity rating score and moved away from displaying the kilometers achieved in testing. There's a few important reasons as to why that change was necessary. There were really a number of problems with showing the kilometers tested from the single application longevity testing. So I'll quickly dash through those. So firstly, the test wear allowance for the single application longevity testing, we'll just call SAL, was 0.1%. So in the main test, it's 0.5% elongation wear, which is your normal recommended replacement mark for your chain's lifespan. So once it gets to that, you should be throwing the chain away, putting a new chain on so you don't wear damage your chain rings and cassette. For the SAL testing, we're giving it basically 1/5 of that, or 0.1% elongation wear. I need enough, wear, leeway or runway that I can try to determine when a lubricant treatment has actually given out. So, and what we're looking for is, really low to no wear at a check interval measure, really low to no wear at the next check interval, and we keep going until suddenly there's a point where there's a notable jump between the previous interval's check measure and this check measure. That's our big hint that the lubricant treatment has really given up the ghost. It's given all it can give, and now we're in a territory where we can say that lubricant treatment's effectively done. It's now higher friction and higher wear from that point. So we're looking for effectively that jump point. And then that jump point could come at quite different stages depending on a lubricant and its properties. So typically immersive waxes and some wax drips would have a very clear jump point, as in they're awesome, low friction, no wear, until the treatment is done and it's got a fairly steep drop off. So it's awesome, and bang, we have a clear big gap now on the next check measure. Some of the really long-lasting wet lubricants, however, would just be like say Silca Synergetic or Synergy. It's just like so low wear, really low wear, really low wear, really low wear. And those tiny little bits of wear, it may slowly creep up, like we're measuring extras, 0.03% at 1 and 0.06, 0.07, and slowly they may increase, but it just trickles along until we reach the test wear allowance of 0.1% elongation wear. There hasn't been a really big jump point at any stage. It's just continued to slowly trickle up. And so when displaying the data, we would have the total kilometers to the wear allowance, and we would have the jump point. And the jump point was really the important one if we had one, but it's pretty confusing to the casual reader looking at these two columns, going, what's the jump point? What's the total kilometers? Which one am I going by? So, that was overall problematic to begin with. The other big problematic part is that, at the end of the day, 0.1% wear allowance, whilst it's not really that much in terms of the testing that I'm doing in the SAL testing, it's a lot for trying to run a lubricant treatment that long. not many people should be, actually nobody, should be looking to use up 20% of their chain's wear allowance in a treatment application. You're running it too long. So you don't expect to just get 5 applications out of your chosen lubricant before your chain is at the recommended replacement mark. So people would think that, those kilometers to the wear allowance, that's awesome. I'm good to go for that number of kilometers per treatment, and that is not the case at all. So that's again something that was just always going to be a battle to try to educate. Just having those numbers there. And lastly, we're trying to always relate test kilometers from a machine, or ergo driven by a motor, to real world cycling kilometers, and that's always fun. So in amongst all of that, displaying the kilometer data was just a battle in terms of people's understanding and what they would take from it and what they could then go out in the real world and do. And sometimes some manufacturers would incorrectly use that data the same way. So we had manufacturers use the total kilometers to the 0.1% wear allowance, and it could be a massive number. And it's like, hey, yeah, you can do 9,000 kilometers on a treatment application, and no, you cannot. So in summary, that's why we've moved to a longevity rating system where I'm obviously using the kilometers from the testing to work out, at the end of the day, the longest lasting lubricants ever tested are going to be a 10 out of 10, and then everything else is benchmarked from that point. Right, that made a change to the SAL testing data, hopefully explained okay. Yeah, let's check out Silca's Endurance chip. Obviously, the reason why people are purchasing the Endurance chip is to either get longer treatment lifespan so they don't have to re-wax as often, or if they're frequently riding in harsh conditions, for that wax treatment to last their ride length and those conditions all groovy so they can get to the next re-wax without having any undue wear on their chain. So let's see how it went. Okay, so we'll kick off with just dry road conditions. And very noticeably, there's a big difference between Silca, or the base hot melt with an Endurance chip, versus without it. Probably one of the biggest in-category differences, really. So that has turned it into one of the longest lasting wax treatments that we've tested, versus on the sort of fairly medium side in here. Although these ratings look obviously very low, again, like there's a percentage at the end of the day of the top longest lasting ever tested, and there can actually be these top ones cranked in so many kilometers. It does make these kind of look not as good as they are in your, I guess, real world use. But I've had to kind of base things on a percentage. Also bear in mind that because this is a rebuilt testing from the new protocol, most of the products tested are the better products. Unlike the main league table where we've got basically 60 lubricant tests done, a lot of them are pretty meh. There's hardly any meh lubricants on this table. It's sort of ranking against a lot of really good products. So don't hold ones down here too harshly. In terms of off-road, so gravel, mountain bike, cyclocross in dry dust conditions, really outstanding, only beaten by the now discontinued Silca Hot Wax X, but up there with some really long-lasting stuff. So again, a big gap between hot melt with an Endurance chip versus the base hot melt only. And in extreme conditions, so this is where it's hit with a lot of water and abrasive contamination, only just beaten by Absolute Black's Graphene Lube. And so obviously gets a top 10 out of 10 score there. And base hot melt actually did pretty well with water being introduced versus other products with a lot of water and abrasive contamination as well. But still a pretty notable gap between hot melt with Endurance versus hot melt base. So there is really no doubt that the Endurance chip is not making just a little bit of difference to the treatment longevity of hot melt. It makes a very clear, big treatment longevity difference. There really is no doubt about that. Right, it's taken me a little bit of time to actually get to this test. So Endurance chip has been out there on the market for quite some time. And from what I can tell, it's been a really popular product around the world. And so overall anecdotal feedback from users has been, I guess, fairly decent and strong for a bit of time now. And the overwhelming, or basically all of the anecdotal feedback that I'm aware of with endurance chip is that yes, people do notice a significant difference in the wax treatment lifespan, especially in harsher riding conditions versus base hot melt. So yeah, we've got a good match between the control test here and real world feedback. Yeah, so for me, this whole wax tuning area is a bit of fun. Obviously I've been a big proponent of immersive waxing since really I discovered it on my own before the days of ZSC. Just the difference that a good immersive wax makes to your chain and drivetrain lifespan and day in, day out cleanliness and all that stuff, as you know, I've talked about a bit. It is just such a groovy time. But obviously immersive waxing back when I started ZSC was very not mainstream, and to see it grow into now being as mainstream as it is and really conquering the world tour and really all cycling demographics at the highest level for some time now, and just it's really got to the point where if you're not immersive waxing and you're racing at a very high level, you'll get a funny look, as opposed to it being pretty much the other way around, say 5 to 10 years ago. So the maturity of immersive waxing as a product in this market segment has been just brilliant to see. And yeah, it's great that this little thing called reality around why the top immersive waxes will defeat oils, just becoming that basic logic and physics and understanding becoming very, very difficult to fight against. So, but if we step back in time a little bit, the options, so the number of manufacturers that had an immersive wax product out on the market was a lot smaller, and the options were typically more limited. It's like, here's our immersive wax. And over time now, we've seen manufacturers before, like Rex with their, they were quite clever, I think, with your box of wax came with some base blocks and a friction modifier block, and you could purchase separate friction modifier blocks and tune your wax blend to your liking. Other manufacturers might have, like, here's our basic wax tablet and here's our race wax tablet. So this kind of thing has existed for some years now. So Silca is not necessarily new to bringing out, wax tuning, so to speak. But, as can be Silca's way, I think they've been overall the most clever to have, look, here's our awesome base wax. And as it is, it's fast, lasts well, it's a ripper. You will have a great time. However, if what you're looking for is this, you can now tune your wax that way. If what you're looking for is, say, more speed, then we've got your speed chip. So I think the way that they've gone about it, and obviously with Silca's marketing and so on, it just really helps bring this whole era of wax tuning to the fore. And the fact that, it's not gimmicky, it's not like we add an endurance chip and it's like, wow, with some control testing, we can kind of pick up, there's like 10%, improvement in longevity. The difference is very, very big and very, very obvious. So if you wish to tune your wax in that particular way, you will absolutely get the result that you're looking for. Now, I think personally there's still some room to go with this wax tuning. We don't want things to get gimmicky, and I am certain that unfortunately we will get to a stage where that occurs, where we will have wax additives or wax blends that are marketed for, let's just say, some very narrow focuses. But overall, I definitely think there's still some room, genuine, areas of improvement with wax blends to help various cycling demographics. For instance, we know that most immersive waxes can be quite a pain to break in if it's really cold. So like sub-freezing temperatures, it can just be a drag for like an hour or more to try to get that wax treatment to break in. So having a low temperature specific immersive wax for those that are cycling in those really harsh conditions, as well as potentially rust inhibitor additives in a wet weather or winter focus wax. So I think if we went back, say, 5 years and we had a particular brand went to market with like a summer wax and a winter wax, that would have been a really tough sell at the time. And now I think it would probably make just a lot of sense for a lot of manufacturers to have a look at that direction. I know Silca are thinking of that. They have been, in their own sort of information, playing with a wet weather specific wax, but the endurance chip kind of almost gets it there in a lot of ways, but potentially adding in rust inhibitors into that wax blend as well might help lowering the melt temperature of that wax to make it better for really cold conditions. I think there's still room to have a wax tuning or wax blend that is very specific for harsh winter conditions riding, and that a manufacturer is going to sell enough of that product now to actually have that come into existence. So things like that I think we will still see come out by someone sometime in the not too distant future, and that will also be a great step in the direction of more immersive waxes having the time that they're looking for from their immersive wax life. And lastly, just on that, the wax tuning or wax optimization front, general ramblings, I think and I hope that we will actually see some brands bring out a multi-pot wax pot unit. So it's just going to be neater if you've got, say, 2 pots in the one nice lovely unit, as opposed to having 2 separate pots with 2 separate power cords and so on. I think the number of people that will absolutely say this wax is awesome for me in winter, and this wax is awesome for me in summer, or this wax is awesome for me in training, and this wax is awesome for me in racing, that's only going to grow, especially as brands bring out genuinely excellent wax blends made specifically for these purposes. So yeah, I wonder who's also going to be the first to bring out a multi-pot unit, and if it's not too crazy price, that will be excellent as well. All right, so just to wrap it up, how did the endurance chip test go versus Silca's marketing claims? Let's have a look at those. So looking at Silca's marketing, we can see that so the base hot melt wax is this green color line here, and the endurance chip additive is, I'm not sure what color green to call that, but it's a different color green. They are basically saying that for about a 0.5% drop in efficiency, you are going to get around at least a 50% increase in wax treatment longevity. Now, I can't attest to the efficiency side of change side of things, but for sure, what we saw in the zero friction cycling testing benchmark, and obviously my testing is different to their testing, but we saw pretty much at least a doubling of the treatment lifespan, taking the change to that 0.1% wear mark for that longevity test. So absolutely no concerns at all around the accuracy of Silca's marketing in terms of treatment extension or treatment life extension from adding the endurance chip into the wax blend. And again, anecdotally, all the feedback I've heard around endurance chip is it makes a big noticeable difference to your wax treatment lifespan, especially in wet conditions. All right, that better do. Apologies again. What do you know? Went on longer than I thought. When I'm still a bit under the weather and a bit foggy, and when I'm dumber than normal, I have more trouble than normal trying to put words and sentences together and keep things somewhat, I can't use the word concise with me, but less fluffy. So sorry, yeah, I fluffed on a little bit, but hopefully that was still overall interesting stuff. And yeah, I will look forward to your comments and input. I'll get to them when I can. We have a long weekend here in Australia, so I'll be looking forward to having a bit more of a break in recovery. And yeah, but I'll look forward to chatting to you when I can, and I will catch you on the next one.